Well, kia ora koutou. Good morning, everybody. Lovely to see you all this wonderful morning. Thankfully, the wind has died down and hopefully we're in for better weather for the rest of this week. It certainly has been a challenge the last few days. Look, can I open our meeting, please, by inviting Dale Marie to provide us with a karakia.
Morena tātou. Ai, I te timatanga e mihinu kia koutou, I hui mai nei I tēnei ata. Manawa mai te Māori nuku, manawa mai te Māori rangi, ko te Māori kai au, he Māori tipua, ka pakuru mai te pō, tau mai te Māori, haumie, huie, tai ie. Embrace the life force of the earth, embrace the life force of the sky. The life force have gathered is powerful and shatters all darkness. Come great life force, join it, gather it, it is done.
Yeah, thank you. Great way to kick the day off. Thank you, Dale Marie. Just a couple of opening comments from me before we launch into our agenda. It has come to my attention that we have a champion in our midst, a 5-time champion, in fact. Councillor Andrew Brown recently won the intermediate division of the Te Awamutu Golf Club champs. So I don't know, do we have like a medal ceremony or?
No, I think not. Yeah, thanks for those comments, Your Worship. But it was the intermediate championship. The real golfers play in the seniors. So
I don't know.
But it was fun, and it's always nice to win.
5th time? You've won it 5 times.
Yep, first time in 1989.
Wow. It's a long career.
Indeed.
Long sporting career. Fantastic. Oh, well, congratulations. I can't say I profess to having ever won anything in golf. So well done. What did they say? Golf is a game that is really a frustrated walk. Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Right, let's launch then into our agenda. We have before us, obviously, we have a disclosure of members' interests. Are there any today for anybody to disclose? I'm not aware of there being any great late items. I'm not aware of there being any late items either. Nothing, no. So then on to the confirmation of the order of the meeting. It's my understanding it's remained the same. Roger will move that. Claire will second that. I will put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Confirmation of our minutes of our 29 August meeting. They appear there on page 9. Have been pre-circulated, as is our protocol nowadays. There's a slight change to the recommendation, as there have been a couple of minor typographical errors picked up rather. So the recommendation will be as it is, but after the last word meeting, it will say subject to minor typographical errors. I'm happy to move that from the chair. Lou will second that. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Moving on then to the next item, which is documents signed under council seal. Do you want to speak to that for us, Gary? Thank you.
No, Your Worship. There is just a warrant for a new staff member.
Cool. Pretty straightforward. Mike Pettit will put that. Andrew will second that. Put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Tab 8 then in our agenda documents moves on then to our first significant item, which is the adoption of the draft dog control policy and bylaw. This is one of Graham Pollard's. Now, as Graham takes a seat, I don't know how many of you are aware, but this will be the last time that Mr. Pollard appears before us. He is off to Thames Coromandel District Council, TCDC, to take up a fantastic role as a principal advisor in climate change area. So thank you, Graham, for all your hard work, not only in this area, but in others. How many years have you been here?
6.5 years.
Oh, wow. Fantastic. Yeah, wonderful.
You get longer. You get longer for various crimes, don't you?
Oh dear. Now. Right, over to you then, so long as you're not too unkind about Waipa.
Right. Thank you, Your Worship, and good morning, everybody, and thank you for your kind words. We have arrived at long last after a very lengthy process at the opportunity to adopt the dog control policy and the dog control bylaw, replacing the 2015 documents of the same names. Should be relatively straightforward. One thing that I would like to draw your attention to is that the resolution of the committee didn't quite match the decisions of the committee. We checked that against the recording. So we've taken this opportunity of correcting it through the council resolution today, and that is in relation to the Oval, Cambridge Park, that the discussion and the show of hands on the 14th of August was to keep that as an on-leash area. So we've corrected that to be consistent with the decisions on the day. You will also, I understand, have received an email asking for a decision to be reconsidered. Such a request is effectively an appeal to a decision. There is no appeals process in the bylaw making process under the Local Government Act. If we were to receive an appeal, we should make that available to the 276 other submitters as well. But as I say, there is no procedural opportunity for appeals in making and reviewing and amending bylaws. Other than that, we've looked through all the issues that were raised. We are happy that there are no procedural errors in making this revised bylaw. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you, Graham. Are there any questions or discussion around the paper? Claire?
Yes, thanks. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate you, Graham. What a fantastic opportunity, that waits you at TCDC. Yeah, I've seen you at a number of climate events, and yeah, I wish you all the best. Yeah, with your new position. Yeah, good luck with that. I just wanted to clarify some things that were raised in that email. Apart from the request about the changing the area north of the Mangahohoi stream, which I appreciate can't be altered because of the procedure, but there was clarification sought also because there were statements made at our deliberations that the Pioneer Walkway was dog prohibited, where in actual fact in the email material there are signs that says it's an on-leash area. And I think that the correspondent was wanting to just check that it is correct that the Pioneer Walkway will remain an on-leash area. Because it's not listed in it's not listed in the policy or the bylaw as a prohibited area. So I presume it, I just wanted confirmation about that.
It's sorry, my understanding is that the Pioneer Walkway traverses the area that is in the bylaw to be an on-leash, off-leash area according to ours.
Okay, right.
So that is my understanding. The walkway as it approaches Mutu Street is not included, so that will be on leash anyway. But going out towards Racecourse Road, that again is part of the on leash, off leash hours arrangements as we consulted in the statement of proposal back in May, June.
Which is shown in the map.
Yes.
Yeah, which are
Yeah.
those colours, which I actually thought those maps were really great. Actually, yeah, appreciated the thought that went into them. So the Pioneer Walkway as a I suppose, a standalone sort of kind of asset, isn't really referred to. It's more the areas that
Yeah.
it traverses.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, it's good to understand that. Okay. No, thank you very much.
Thanks, Claire, and thank you for the clarification. Marcus?
Yeah, this was really well done, and big ups to you and Carl as well for the work that you guys did and consulting with people.
And
It's a bit
Diana as well.
disappointing that we're now restricting, well, no, we're banning dogs on Kekapuku. So I'd like to see, like, going forward, that we're proactive in promoting other mountains and bush areas that we can, like, people can take dogs to use on our hills and some exercise.
Thanks for your comments, Marcus. Any other comments? Liz?
Yeah, no, thank you. I think, when we come around to do dog policy reviews, this is always very emotive, a very highly interested area from our general public, because, yeah, as we know, we've got a whole lot more dogs in Waipa, and for many people, they are, special, friends. So great to see the level of engagement in this space. And I know that a lot of the decisions that we had to make were not easy. There's always conflict and there's always a balancing act to be made. So I feel like we've landed in a good place. And there's something in this for everybody. I guess that's the message. I appreciate we're not going to please everybody in this space. So with that, happy to move the recommendation.
Thank you, Liz. Lou, then Dale Marie.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to make a clarification that from the RSA point of view, a war memorial is an object that is a part of it. So when they create the War Memorial Park, we only consider the War Memorial to be the Sunken Cross and the areas where we have recognition of our fallen, which includes, of course, the fountain. Okay, so we actually accept that. However, we look at the rest of the area as a memorial park and leave it. And I just want to make that little clarification. As far as we're concerned, it is a park. It used to have, for example, a golf course there. They had a little mini golf course on there. They've had a lot of areas there. The people that are currently saying that it's all a war memorial, I think are quite inaccurate. So I just believe that the memorial side of it is the actual memorial. And to just accentuate that a little bit, we have Anzac Green, and Anzac Green has a memorial on it. However, we do not desiccate the rest of Anzac Green's park area as a part of that memorial, although we do put crosses on it from time to time. Thank you.
Thank you, Lou. Thank you for the clarification. So is there any further discussion on this? I have a mover and Dale Marie, you're happy to second. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Wonderful. Thank you very much. And thank you so much, Graham. When's your last day? Oh, so we'll see you around.
Because in the middle of my notice period, I've got jury service to do in Hamilton.
Oh.
So
Oh,
I'm not sure how quite that's going to impact on things. I might be stuck in a jury room for a week, or maybe not.
Or maybe not. Okay.
So we'll see. But yeah, I'm not quite done yet because I've got the next item as well, Your Worship.
Okay, fantastic. Great. Well, let's move on then to your next item.
Don't
then,
get rid of me that
Graham.
easily.
Adoption of the draft public places bylaw, appearing
Okay.
on page 71 of our agenda.
Thank you. So a slightly shorter project to review the Public Places Bylaw 2018. This is now the opportunity to adopt the reviewed bylaw to come into effect on the 1st of November. Really from the deliberations meeting in committee, there are no further changes other than really obviously dates now being confirmed, but also the guidance notes that was missing from your diligent copy of the draft bylaw. We're not entirely certain what happened, but it seems as though that file had got corrupted, so we had to remake it. So hopefully now you can all see that guidance note. So that is the only change really that you're going to see from that earlier draft. So to ask you to adopt the Public Places Bylaw 2023.
Great, thank you very much, Graham. Any discussions or question in respect of this matter? Marcus? Marcus will move and Claire will second that. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. And just like that, it was done. Thank you so much, Graham. No doubt we will see you around, but as this is your last meeting, thank you so much for all your hard work for 6.5 years here at Waipā. It hasn't gone unnoticed. So we wish you well in your new position and your travels over to TCDC.
Thank you very much. And nothing more that I want to say other than it's been a lot of hard work. It's been a lot of fun. We have actually had some laughs. I know it's serious, the work we go through, but we don't have to be solemn while we go about it. That's been my attitude. You may have noticed.
The puns.
So yeah, it's been good. So I'd just like to finish in the words of the great Irish comedian Dave Allen. Goodbye, thank you, and may your God go with you.
Thank you, Graham. Fantastic. Right, moving on then to our next item, which is the joint management agreement with Te Mihi Nui. Kirsty's to present this one, I believe. Oh, there you are. Gary Knighton being on leave. Morning, Kirsty, lovely to see you.
Through you, Madam Chair, tēnā koutou katoa. I would like to respectfully request that this report be taken as read and just highlight a couple of key points. So the purpose of this report is to seek endorsement of the joint committee and the joint management agreement that have been prepared in response to the Maniapoto Claims Settlement Act that was enacted in 2022. Essentially, we're not captured by that later act, but the 2012 Act, and we're part of a governance group established under that Act. However, as discussion between the parties, there are efficiencies to be gained by bringing these two things together. We have had the agreement legally reviewed internally and also with input from Simpson Greason. It is possible that there may still be some minor changes made to that agreement, and there is provision for new schedules to be added. That would be done with approval from each of the parties. I'd just also like to request a small change to recommendation part E, which seeks to delegate authority to the manager strategy to agree to any final minor drafting amendments, if that could be changed to the manager of strategic partnerships, because Gary will be returning later this week. I'm happy to respond to any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsty. Questions or comments in respect of this item for Kirsty? No discussion. You second. Okay, Claire will move that. Liz will second that. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Awesome. Thanks, Kirsty.
Can I
Roger.
just a subsequent quick question to that. We've approved the document at the end, the joint, let me get it back. The joint management agreement and the schedules that are therein attached as appendices. There are quite a number that are to be filled in, obviously, from the activities of that group.
Yes.
When those appendices are complete, does that document come back to us for information when they are complete?
Ms. Kirsty.
Through you, Madam Chair. So the agreement will need to come back to each of the parties to review and have input into schedules. Yeah. In my expectation, and Mayor Susan will be authorised in the recommendation that Councillor Andrew Brown is true in Susan's absence, given she's going to be getting away shortly, but any subsequent changes to schedules. Last time, Susan, signatory on these, Susan, and we will be recruiting that on these joint management agreements. So there is a report coming to you at strategic and policy committee meeting. October, which will report on work streams, including those
Yep.
agreements. So it is anticipated that there would be a reporting back. Sorry, that's a very long-winded way of
No,
saying.
So the answer to that
that answers
is
my
yes.
question,
Thoroughly.
probably in triplicate, but thank you.
No, it's a good question. So the answer is yes. Fantastic. Thank you, Kirsty. Moving on then to our next item, which is the summary of the annual report to the Alcohol Regulatory and Licensing Authority. That is one of Carl's. Good morning, Carl. Nice to see you.
Good morning, Your Worship, councillors. So yes, that time again, annual report to the Licensing Authority. As in previous cases, once you've received this, it gets filed with the authority through their electronic portal, which is why it's set out in the format that it is. I'll take the report as read and just skip through some of the highlights. So going to past all the administrative stuff to section 4. That table doesn't really capture all of the committee and the licensing team's business. It's a select part of it. So I've again chosen to provide you with Appendix 4 that provides a bit more detail on the license applications and the pattern over previous years, just to give a bit more detail there. Section 5 expands on it a little bit more, and I guess to use a rugby analogy that's a bit popular at the moment, it's a game of two halves. We dealt with a lot more applications last year than previous years. In fact, the most we have since the Act came into force, driven mainly by the number of special licenses as events return to normal, particularly larger events after COVID, accompanied by a significant increase in the number of manager's certificate applications. The other side of that coin is that whilst we dealt with a large number of applications, we do acknowledge that we still have a backlog of applications that we're working through. The main reason simply being we didn't prioritise those applications. On the whole, most of them are low risk licence renewals where the licensee can continue trading whilst we're determining them. And we essentially had to focus on work that had more time constraints associated with it. So not just in the alcohol space where we've focused on new licenses and special licenses that obviously have event dates connected to them, but also in the food space, for example, where we've had a statutory responsibility to do things within a certain time frame. And I'll talk a little bit more about some of the initiatives that we've put in place to address that a little bit later on. It's a bit of a summary there and some of the other things, but generally a lot of upward trends, a slight increase in the number of hearings and an increase in the number of other administrative tasks that the committee undertakes. So they have the power to consider waivers for a number of different reasons through a licensing process, and to consider whether temporary managers should act for a licensed premise. There's been an increase in both of those. And then a more of a staff level, enforcement visits have remained relatively consistent. And there were 2 controlled purchase operations this year, where quite often there's only 1. Section 6 that talks about initiatives. A lot of this is word for word things that have continued on from the previous report. And as you'll be aware, the bill that council endorsed last year has now been passed. So that refers to removing the appeals process from the local alcohol policy review, and also opening up who can object to an alcohol license to a wider range of people. Another initiative is that applicants are now able to ask for their applications to be advertised on council's website in addition to or in lieu of doing it in newspapers. The advantage that that offers council is we get to see the public notices before they're printed, so we avoid errors, and we also avoid people forgetting to send us evidence of their public notice. So some of the applications that haven't been processed are because we haven't had evidence of public notices. So it's one of the initiatives that we've put in place there. And we've also renewed our request to the authority and the ministry to review the fees. As you'll see in Appendix 3, we don't cover our costs in this space. And there's also been quite an effort on education and other behind the scenes work through club champs and meeting with other various groups. In terms of directly addressing the backlog, one of the main steps there is we've restructured the health and licensing team. We've added positions there, one of which will be directly or mostly involved in the licensing work. We're looking at streamlining reporting, and we've also done other things, scheduled a number of hearing dates, and just tried to speed up certain parts of the process there. Section 7, in regards to the local alcohol policy, is very similar to last year's report. There's not a lot to comment on whilst the policy is under review. And if the policy is working properly, then it's difficult to assess effectiveness, if that makes sense. If it's addressing the problems that it was intended to address, then there's not a lot of comment there. And just summarising to the authority that yes, it's due for review. That process is currently underway. And similar in terms of our comments about whether the Act has been effective. Again, there's not a lot of evidence from a council point of view to support that. The one comment that we will expect to change is the comments there around how there's been a small number of objections to applications in the past. With the new bill in place, we are expecting to see more applications with opposition that we'll work through. So section 11, changes and trends. The high level comment there is that suitability, or the assessment of suitability for who can hold a licence, is an ever growing scope. So staff and inspectors are now looking at visa, work issues, migrant status, employment issues, a whole range of different things there. And the wider that scope is, the more likely applications are to go to hearings. Section 12 gives us the opportunity to ask what changes we would like in the Act. Again, a lot of this is rolled over from the previous year, starting with a request that the Act is now 10 years old. It would be timely to do a review. Would still benefit from having a national database of manager certificate holders, so that when people move from district to district, we know where they come from, what their background is. Again, highlighting that we've asked for a fees review. And some comments that have come from the staff around increasing the association of non-alcohol products that market themselves as beer, wine or spirits, and suggesting that they should possibly be covered by the same advertising restrictions as apply to alcohol. The theory being there that if you are being exposed to products that are marketed as beer, wine or spirit, be they alcohol free or not, does potentially lead on to exposing the alcohol inclusive products, if that makes sense. So if you can go into a dairy and see beer, wine and spirits, that in effect markets the beer, wine and spirits that you might see in other places. We've raised again the issue that's particular to Waipa around orchards and other places that have cafes, and a restriction that prevents their cafe selling the product that is made from their own produce. There is a private members bill that we hope will address that, but we'll have to wait and see whether it remains in the ballot after the election. Most of the other comments there are administrative aspects. The last comment that I made there when I drafted this report was that I was disappointed about the amount of communication around the Rugby World Cup bill. We didn't know much about that until it was adopted. However, I can say now that since it has been adopted, the communication from the Ministry of Justice around that has been very good. We've received a lot of support and information for our website, information to provide staff and licensees. So really stepped up their game, which has assisted us in that space. So that's my high-level summary, and I'm quite happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Carl. Very comprehensive as always. Claire.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, Carl, an excellent report. I wanted to pick up on the fees and the costs of running this system, and the fact that I suppose there's a shortfall of $258,000 a year from the activities, which I just wanted to check for you. How is that paid? Is that from ratepayers generally? Like, do we have to get that money from our community?
Yes, generally it's subsidised by rates or income from other fees and charges within the team. So there's a range of fees and charges coming in. So that's a balance. Yes, we want the fees reviewed, but we also need to look at efficiencies as well as part of that.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
It's clear.
Lou.
Thank you very much for your report, Carl. Very good. Just on section 12, there's a support for introduction of an exemption from the requirement for a special license for club hosting funerals, etc. Is there any progress on that at all, or any likelihood of progress?
Through the chair, I honestly don't believe that will be a priority for the ministry. It's simply something that we see a lot of, and if there's a way, the main issue there is usually the time frame. You know, we may have as little as 2 days to turn a special license around for a funeral in those circumstances. So we're just looking at other options there. But no, in fairness, I don't expect that will be a priority for any amendment.
Because under the actual existing law at the moment, you know, as you say, you've only got 2 or 3 days notice. And quite often with people, it's a small funeral, you know, it's actually held in a club rather than another venue. So yeah, there is a quite cost to that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lou. Any other questions for Carl? No? Okay, I'm happy to move the recommendation as it appears on, oh, gosh, my machine's decided to be a little bit tricky. As it appears on page 146, just to receive the report. Bruce will second that. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Excellent. Great work, Carl.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Right. Our next item appearing on tab 12 of our agenda is financial report for the period ending at 31 August 2023. Good morning, Nada. Nice to see you. Hmm? Yeah. Nada, you have to turn your microphone on.
Going now?
It's the green bit. Yep, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, we'll start again. Got the results, the financial results for August. I'll mainly take it as read, as I know you have a pretty busy morning. I'll just point out in the recommendation, there is a couple of spelling mistakes in the 1,000. There's a D that somehow appeared there. And I'll also point out, if you see on page 2 of my report, it was 162 of the agenda, I think. So the carry forwards have been completed for the capital projects, and there was 57.3 million. But I think it was around 40 that was in the growth space for those. So any questions?
I'm sure there will be. Roger, then Claire.
Yes, thank you. Just a couple on that, on the second page of your report, and I suppose it's just querying some of the lower than expected, given that we're 2 months through the year, which is 15–16%. But I noticed that the revenue on transportation at 3% is, even at the early part of the year, is well below expectation. First of all, what is that revenue that comes through transportation, and why is it lagging behind by such a figure?
Yeah, so mainly most of that is from the Waka Kotahi claim. So each month we put through, so it's mainly a timing, so that will catch up once the work starts picking up, and quite seasonal, a lot of the that roading.
Right, so we can only claim for what has been completed.
Yeah.
And was it a weather-related situation that we didn't manage to get what we normally would expect to get done?
Can you hop in here?
Thank you. And through your worship, look, I think it's more the seasonal aspect that Nada was talking about. A lot of our roading work is obviously done over the summer months. So bearing in mind this is July and August. It's winter, so not nearly so much work done, and then often a little bit of a lag with the with the timing. It lags a month behind.
So I'm now going to make an assumption on my second question that the answer is exactly the same, but I'll still ask it anyway. And that is on our capital expenditure being down at 8% against what we'd expected. And I mean, we were unable to complete last year's, as we saw the amount carried forward. Are we lagging back? Are we getting further behind with our capital works?
Yeah, I think again, that would be a timing. So the percentage would have got pushed down a lot with those carry forwards coming in. Quite significant carry forwards there that you can see. I know we are also working on our forecast. They're working on their capital programs at the moment to see what is more likely to be achieved.
Just on a clarification there, when we bring forward capital, does that look at does that add to our expectation on budget, or is it kept as a discrete figure that so we've got two separate capital budgets, one of the carried forward, one of this year's expectation that we're seeing progressive achievements against?
Yeah, so those carry forwards have already been budgeted for last year.
Yeah.
And because they weren't able to be complete, so that budget and that funding then flows forward into the next year. So they are quite separate, but they are still projects that are ongoing and still running through multiple years.
Yeah, so in these figures, we don't get any achievement against that figure then?
No, not that I'm aware of, but I can look into that. Yeah. Yeah.
Claire and then Mike.
Thanks, Nada. I've got 4 questions. The first one is in the capital expenditure, and it's on page 4 of your report. It's at the top. It's got the purchase of the Methodist Church, Pirongia, due to tender delays, 253,000. Now, I'm not aware that there is a Methodist church there. There is a community chapel that was once a Methodist church. Yeah. And I'm sorry if I hadn't, maybe I should have asked that question before the meeting so that you might have the information. That it just doesn't actually ring true. Yeah.
I'll have to go back and look into that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll get back to you. I think that you had emailed through some queries yesterday, and sorry, I haven't.
Oh no, I didn't manage to get emails to you. I'm afraid I gave priority to other people. Sorry. Yeah.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
I can get back to you later.
Yeah,
today.
I appreciate that. Yeah, thanks. And then second question is on page 6 of the report, which is the sort of the risk indicator report, the snapshot, and it's in the top right-hand corner, the budget versus actual variance for operations, and then in the same box for capex, because we can't actually read the red part of the bar.
Yeah.
And it'd be really good to have that actually.
Yeah.
Because
okay.
It might, it'd be great.
Yeah, I see that. I can have a look and see if they can make sure that those figures can fit.
Yeah, thanks.
So we're squashing, trying to get a lot of info in here. Yeah.
Yeah, and then that's right. But it's great to have it all on one page, I must admit. I do love it. Yeah. And then on page 8, which is appendix 1, there's quite in the operating income under finance income. Yeah, so the actuals are actually quite a lot more than what was forecast. So that was a bit of a surprise. Like, what's the extra financial income that we're getting?
I'd have to go back and have a look. Yeah. Off the top of my head.
We're not doing any arbitrage or anything, are we?
No.
Yeah. Okay, and then lastly, on page 10,
there could possibly be interest. I know interest rates are getting pushed up, so but I can't.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So, but have we got lots of cash reserves?
Oh, so through her worship, look, it will just be interest in terms of that finance income line. Well, it would only be interest or dividends. I'm just not sure on the timing of our dividends from the airport company or whatever. I'm not too sure. But oh no, sorry, actually, my apologies. Dividends is a separate line anyway. So it would just be interest would be the only thing coming through.
Yeah. Okay. And then lastly, on page 10, which is the statement of capital expenditure, there's a variance for this period in the top part, which is the community services and facilities. I mean, usually you give us a little bit of a note about what variances for this period we've got, which is 1.2 million. Yeah, if you could just give us details on that.
So that 1.2 million, sorry, I'm just zooming back up. It would be to do with the resolution, those two in the resolution.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Gotcha.
And
Yeah, I
I
didn't make the connection. Yeah.
And they're also under the, on page 3 of my report, 163 of the agenda. So playground reserves, Cambridge North.
Oh, right. Yeah. Cool. No, thank you very much. I'm happy.
Oh, no,
Thank you.
Jonathan.
Be good to get that extra information though that you're going to send through. Thank you.
Mike, and then back to you, Roger.
Well, thank you through your worship. Just on page 166 or page, I think it's 5 of your report, Nada, just that rate status. And I guess I'll just like some more clarification and maybe some tracking of the outstanding rates. I'm just looking at last year's $530,000. I mean, this year's obviously is 1.7, but there's obviously some catch up as the rates payments come in, and also the water rates. So it'd just be quite nice to have actually a graph just over the last 5 years of just how that's been tracking, the actual overall rates and the amount that has been paid, or that's owed to us, and the water rates, and just any policy changes, maybe a bit of commentary that have happened, 4 or 5 years, whatever's easiest, but just a little bit of history of just whether we're getting worse, getting better, and just any policy changes that may have affected that either way. Thanks.
Good question, Mike. Roger, and then Monty, you're looking like. Turn your thingamajiggy on.
Just as a follow-up from that was my question as well.
Okay.
Have you got a sense that we're tracking slightly worse on rates recovery, both for rates and water?
I would have to check with Kirsten, but I think she did mention that she has managed to bring that figure down slightly. I think it was just a timing, just a resource. Yeah, but she does try and focus. They do try and focus on capturing that outstanding.
Kim, did you want to have a more general comment in respect to that?
Yeah, I guess more of a general comment. Look, I suppose the percentages speak to themselves, and they are slightly not as good as they as they were the previous year. But look, those things can change in a matter of a month or two. So so I'm certainly not concerned at this stage in terms of rates collectability, whether it be water or general rates.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. I guess that's sort of why I've asked for a few years going back, just to see if it, as a councillors, I think it'd be good for us to get an overview of it, and then back in the day, I'm sure when I first joined the community board, there was hardly any money owed to us. I mean, Graham, we used to sort of, talk about it quite a lot and how proud the council was of that. And my feeling is if we went back over 10 years, there's significantly more owed to us. But if we just go back over the last 4 or 5, just to give us a feeling, and then I guess we can, any recommendations that would come out of that.
Andrew, yes.
Susan. We do get a comprehensive report on both rates and water rates on a fairly regular basis. I'm not sure whether it's
monthly. Yeah, it's
monthly. Yeah. So, but that report's not in here. But I know over basically the period of time I've been on council, 10 years, it's remained very static as to what the overdues are. We do occasionally have an increase in the what you might call very sticky amounts, where people have refused to pay for whatever reason, and you have to go into quite protracted negotiations or whatever. Normally that's only 100,000 or so maximum. And I'll be interested to see the next one. My sense is that the 530 is still a very modest sum in comparison to the overall rates and most other councils, but we'll find out, you know, yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew.
Oops. Sorry, through your worship. So on page, what page is that? That's page 172 and 173. The normal monthly reports are there. I don't know if, sorry, Andrew, I don't know if you noticed that. Yeah, and look in terms of the general rates, like ignoring the arrears, which is the top section, which was where that 530 is. If you look at the rates for the current year, so we collected 92% of the first instalment, you know, to the end of August, compared to 94% for August of last year. So that's why I'm saying, look, it's pretty minimal, and and look, they could easily be rectified by the end of September. In terms of getting that percentage equal again. So so not too concerned about that. In regard to the arrears, I mean 36% versus 43%. Yeah, that's a little disappointing, but yeah, we are only 2 months in, and again that can change. And of course, when you're talking about the arrears, I think as you just rightly noted a few moments ago, it's a very small number of debtors, and you can have some sticky debtors, which was the term you used just before. That can actually distort it because there's so few ratepayers who are in arrears. Yeah.
Claire, is this to this point? Or, yeah, Claire and then Roger. I haven't forgotten about you.
I was just going to mention that to get the reporting, it'd be good to actually have the number of properties that are behind rather than just the dollar number. Yeah, that's all, because then, you know, like it might be one property that's got a big amount, but it actually might be 10 quite small amounts. It's useful to know that. Yeah, that's all. Yeah.
Put some perspective on it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Claire. Roger.
I've got 2 questions and I'll reverse them because the second one was about rates anyway. We've had all of the requests for revaluation consideration from the rates, which I believe have now been all responded to, and we're aware in the main of what those changes would be. Have they been incorporated into the rates bills for those that had variations?
Okay, yeah. I think Yolanda's going to answer that. Yeah.
Thank you, Worship. So the QV is still working through the revaluations. So we have received them as they complete them, but they're still within the 3-month period that they are responding to the revaluation submitted.
Still waiting for a number to come in.
So as we receive them and we process them, they are incorporated in the results, but there are some that are still outstanding as of today.
Thank you. And my second question is going back to page 165 or page 4 of your report. And this is that final paragraph above the graph, which talks about Memorial Park. And this is funded from asset sales. Now, and I'm not too sure whether this is in your compartment or in property, but we have a planned budget of asset sales, and we've got a planned number of projects that require asset sales revenue to be allocated against them. First of all, who determines which projects those asset sales are going to be credited against? And do we have some form of picture of the balance of that? You know, so we look at which projects are still remaining and how much we can still expect from asset sales. And I say that because obviously in the last LTP 3 years ago, we went out with a number of projects that were dependent upon asset sales, and we've not been achieving those projects within that time frame. So that balance of asset sales against project allocation, I think, is something that I'd like to see a little bit more information on.
Yeah, great question, Roger. Again,
Yeah. So through your worship, so there's no direct and specific link between a specific asset sale and a specific project. It's more of a funding source, obviously, for a number of projects that have been identified as being funded by asset sales. So just making that point first up, just to remind you as well that we do on a 6-monthly basis report to the Audit and Risk Committee in terms of the asset sales program. And in terms of what has been achieved, what is coming up, etc. So that the next 6-month report is due to the Audit and Risk Committee in October. So you will see that come through at that point.
I'm aware of that because I'm on the Asset and Risk Committee. But again, that asset sales report only identifies the resource that's coming from asset sales.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's kind of a standalone report.
Correct.
There's no relationship or allocation against the outstanding projects that need that asset sales resource. And again, my question, who allocates that? Because it looks as if it's an arbitrary allocation. Who said that those asset sales should go against Memorial Park?
Oh, so sorry. So through your worship. So the LTP determines what projects are being funded by asset sales. So the LTP is very clear on the funding sources. So yeah. So essentially, when we when new people adopt the LTP, that shows what projects are being funded by what.
Sorry, I must be not being very clear on what I'm asking. I agree with you that the LTP says that there are certain projects that are reliant upon asset sales revenue to complete them. Right, so we've got a number of options. And if we sell property A, we've got a bit of resource. Who makes a decision that asset sales revenue is allocated to either that one, or that one in terms of the LTP projects?
Yeah, so look, I guess in some ways, through your worship, Councillor Gordon, those projects will ultimately not be able to proceed unless the asset sales are determined. Are realised. So so look, we're not in that situation where those projects aren't continuing.
Okay.
But ultimately, if it's dependent on asset sales,
I'm going to stop asking the question because
I think I understand your question. You're not getting the answer you want. So Mike and which Mike? Mike Pettit, we'll start with you first.
So would
I
the
can
answer
understand your
be
question, yeah.
through the LTP, the timing of the project would determine where that asset sale would fit into? That'd sort of be how it would work, wouldn't it? I mean, first project, whatever it is, that is subject to asset sales. If it's the first one up with the LTP, we sell assets. I would assume that's where the money goes.
Am I right, Roger, in understanding you're wanting to understand what properties are marked for what projects and at what point is the press go button pressed in order to trigger sales of said property?
Projects that are actually identified that says, okay, if that project is sold, then the money will go against Lake Te Ku'utu development plan. But I'm not aware of any such. So somebody must make that decision.
Yeah, I'm not so through your worship. I mean, I thought I was very clear before. We do not specifically target. We do not specifically tag an actual asset sale to an actual project. It is a general funding. It is a funding source. So it is in more general terms. It's more of a global amount. Yeah.
But I think Roger's question is, at what point is that those list of to sell list triggered, and when is it realised, and how and what order do we realise the value of those properties in order to fund those projects? Is that the question you're asking?
It goes into a pool, accept that?
Yep.
Right.
But
So
you're asking.
we've got a pool that is created by asset sales. somebody must make the decision of how that pool is allocated against which project.
And is that decision made through operations or through governance?
Yeah. So I think through your worship, and just trying to work out the best way to articulate this. But look, projects are being managed. Okay, so projects are being managed as per normal, and we report regularly on our capital program. For a number of projects, the source or one of the funding sources is asset sales. I mean, those projects would not be able to continue if that funding source wasn't available. So as the project is managed, we're making sure that the funding source is available and the funding source is allocated. But I reiterate, it's not a specific asset sale funding a specific project, but the project managers who are managing those projects are making sure that all of their funding is in order as required by the LTP. As they deliver the project. If we got into a situation where the asset sales income wasn't coming through, then obviously fundamentally we'd have to come back to you people and indicate that the project cannot proceed because we haven't got the funding source that the LTP required. Yeah, so that's I guess that's really my view of, and hopefully answers your question.
Andrew, then Dale, and then Claire.
Just go a fraction further. I think possibly Roger's asking how the scheduling of the projects are taking place, like why is it Memorial Park that's happening now? But I presume that's because of the LTP. That's how they're stacking up. That's how they can't be all done together, so they're done in sequence, kind of thing.
Claire.
I just wanted to ask Ken, there would be other factors that determine when a project proceeds. It wouldn't just be reliant on the pool that's in the asset sales, because it's a complex area, projects, whether or not you've got all your permissions, or there might be holdups with other things that's not related to funding at all. So focusing simply on that source of funding, it's not the whole equation, is it, for how projects proceed?
Oh, no, absolutely not. There's obviously project management of a large capital program has a lot of complexity to it. So that's such as the things you've described.
Thank you for that. I think we've covered that one fairly well. Are there any other questions or comments for Nada or Landa or Ken while we've got them in the hot seats? No? Okay, so we have a recommendation appearing at page 162 to receive Nada's report and to approve the budget changes as set out in paragraph B there. Philip, you'll move that for me. Do I have a seconder? Andrew, I will put the motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Righty then, on to our next item, which is the adoption of standing orders, a small amendment here. It's one of Joe's. Morning, Joe. Nice to see you.
Good morning. This is just a minor amendment to the standing orders. There's now been a legislative change that means that those people that are attending council and committee meetings via Zoom can count for the quorum. So we just wanted to update standing orders to reflect that. Does anyone have any questions?
Before I open the floor for questions, I want to stress this doesn't mean we all get to Zoom from home. Clear expectation that your posterior be on a seat in here, if at all possible. I'll open the floor for questions or comments. Lou, no, you're all too scared to say anything now? Come on, Liz.
No, look, I was just going to say, because look, Zooming is obviously something we'll be doing over the next few weeks when I'm away, but I'm always really mindful. I'm in public excluded sessions as well about where my location and where I'm going to be sitting and things like that. So I guess, this is an interesting kind of space to play in. That's all new to us. But yeah, again, we have had some issues in the past. So just think about where you are and how you dressed and what you do. and exactly the public excluded part is probably the one that I'm probably a bit worried about. That's finding a quiet space, isn't it?
Absolutely. And we're pretty clear in our guidelines around those issues anyway when you are appearing via Zoom. So yeah, as I say, it's the exception to the rule. Any other questions or comments? No?
I'll move in that direction.
Roger will move that. Andrew will second it. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Excellent. Now, just quickly, before our morning tea break, there's a resolution there to exclude the public as we have a handful of PX items. Claire, you're happy to move that?
Can I make a comment, Bill, before we
Roger.
pass that?
Absolutely.
I've just got a little bit of a concern about the inclusion of the Te Arawai item in public excluded. I can acknowledge the fact that there are figures, there are names that are mentioned in there that are confirmed donations, and acknowledge that. But I think that Te Arawai is of such public interest, both to those that support the project and those that perhaps do not support the project. And it's getting to the point where I think I couldn't see much, or in fact, if there had been anything, it could have been termed in a slightly different manner to enable that report to have been addressed in public. Now, I've raised this and I've been given the answer as to why it's in public. I just wanted to make and register my comment before we moved into public exclusion. And I've already received the answer.
Okay. So no further discussion or comment on that stuff. I'm quite personally comfortable with the decision. I think given the information in there. So that being the case, we do have the resolution to exclude the budget. I'm happy to move that from the chair. Oh, can't they clear this motion? I'll put the motion.
I'll record my vote. I'll record my vote against. Thank you.
I'll put the motion then. All those in favour say aye. Aye.